You're scrolling through your social media feed on a typical Sunday afternoon, and you see it again. A picture-perfect family gathered around a massive dining table. They're smiling, arms wrapped around each other, celebrating some minor milestone. As you double tap the screen, a quiet, hollow feeling settles in your chest. You realize, with a familiar ache, that this is a reality you no longer share. Later that week, you're at a small get-together with colleagues, and someone casually asks the question you always dread. So, do you have plans with your folks this weekend? You force a quick, tight smile and deflect. You murmur something about schedule conflicts, or maybe you just say they live too far away. You lie. You lie because handing them the ugly, messy truth over appetizers is just too much. It takes too long to explain, and worse, it makes people visibly uncomfortable. They don't know what to do with the heavy, unspoken weight of your reality. So you sit there, carrying the burden of a choice that the most of the world will never truly grasp. A decision that society has already quietly decided is probably, somehow, your fault. We live in a world deeply obsessed with the myth of unconditional family loyalty. From the time we can understand language, we are spoon-fed phrases like blood is thicker than water and family is forever. These concepts are baked into our movies, our books, and our cultural DNA. Because of this deeply ingrained narrative, when someone makes the agonizing decision to finally sever ties with their own family, the societal verdict is swift and harsh. People immediately assume you must be selfish, unnaturally cold, or at the very least, profoundly ungrateful. But here is the truth that the world gets spectacularly wrong. The people who judge you have no idea what it cost you to get here. The people who cut off their families are almost never the ones who quit easily. In fact, they're usually the ones who held on the tightest and tried the longest. Think about the sheer endurance it took to reach your breaking point. You probably spent years, maybe decades, jumping through hoops. You drove hours on holidays, bringing carefully chosen gifts, only to sit in a living room where you felt completely invisible. You were surrounded by people who shared your DNA, yet you were entirely unseen for who you actually are. Every attempt at connection was met with a passive-aggressive remark. Every conversation slowly twisted into a critique of your life choices, your career, or why the authentic version of you simply wasn't acceptable. You were constantly auditioning for a role you could never win. Yet you kept going back. You kept showing up because the idea of walking away felt like an unforgivable betrayal. When you finally reached the end of your rope and stopped going, society loves to imagine there was a cinematic, explosive argument, a slammed door, screaming in the rain. But psychological research paints a completely different, much quieter picture. Take the work of Dr. Carl Pillemer, a researcher at Cornell University who has dedicated years to studying family estrangement. His findings completely shatter our cultural assumptions. He discovered that severing ties with a parent or a sibling is rarely the aftermath of one singular catastrophic fight. Instead, it's a slow, agonizing erosion of the soul. It's the cumulative result of years of desperate attempts to fix things. It's built on apologies you waited for but never received, boundaries you set that were repeatedly trampled over like they didn't exist, and exhausting conversations that ran in endless, crazy-making circles. You didn't walk away because your heart turned cold or because you suddenly stopped caring. You walked away because the psychological tax of staying in that dynamic finally outweighed the devastating cost of leaving. In psychology, the root of this profound damage is known as emotional invalidation. When the very people who are biologically and evolutionarily wired to provide your safe harbor consistently dismiss, mock, or ignore your reality, it does something profound to your nervous system. It's not an acute trauma. It's like a slow, steady drip of water on a stone. Eventually, it wears a hole right through you. You are implicitly taught that your needs are an annoying inconvenience, and that love within your childhood home is entirely conditional based on your compliance. This deep-seated conditioning is exactly why the aftermath of estrangement is so incredibly complex and messy. People outside the situation often assume you just block a phone number, walk away, and suddenly feel free and fine. The reality is much heavier. You mourn. You grieve repeatedly, sometimes when you least expect it. But here is the critical distinction. You are not usually mourning the family you actually had. You are mourning the idealized family you deserved, the one you desperately needed but never received. And then comes the cruelest part of the entire process, the guilt. It creeps in at 2 a.m. You replay scenarios, wondering if you should have just been more patient, if you should have tried a different approach, or maybe if you just needed to expect less. But I need you to listen to this closely. That guilt, it is actually your greatest validation. People who are genuinely cold, selfish, or unfeeling do not experience deep guilt over the loss of connection. That guilt is undeniable proof that you possess a massive, beautiful capacity for love. It just means that your love never had a safe, reciprocal place to land. If you are watching this and you are someone who had to make the excruciating choice to walk away from your roots, you need to hear this loudly and clearly. Surviving a toxic, eroding environment is not a noble act. It is just survival. And you are allowed to want more for your one precious life than simply surviving the people who raised you. Choosing to cut the cord is not, and never has been, taking the easy way out. It is the agonizing process of choosing one type of pain, the pain of grief and judgment, over the pain of continuous self-destruction. And sometimes, choosing your own peace is the most quietly devastating, fiercely protective, and profoundly brave thing a human being can do.